Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room live stream with myself, Dan, Spencer, and Hassan. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this wonderful Friday before we get our weekend set off. Premier League is back again tomorrow with all of your favourite teams playing. I would assume you're just after one, though. But we are going to preview Liverpool's Premier League clash away from home against Brentford. Now, previously, our midweek game against Nottingham Forest didn't go exactly as planned. Now, some people said they were happy with a draw. Some people said that they weren't happy with a draw. It is what it is. Nottingham Forest are one of the better defensive, if not the best defensive team in the league, and hadn't conceded a goal in 7.5 hours of total football before we scored and equalised against them. Now, the problem was in that game that we let them do what they want, which was score early and then park 11 men in front of the box. That's impossible for any team to break down. Now, Forest in themselves, they have shown themselves over 21 games this season to be one of the top 4 teams in the league. It is essentially just one of them. But at the end of the day, we're still top of the league with 4 points clear of Arsenal with a game in hand. However, Saturday is must win. And I think pretty much everybody is in agreement with that. But Spencer, I'll throw it over to you first, and we'll kind of get your thoughts on the aftermath of the Nottingham Forest game and how that kind of sets you up confidence-wise for this game against Brentford.
Yeah, I think if you strip away the fact that it was Nottingham Forest and look at all the other facts behind it, you laid out some of them, where they stand in the table, how they've performed on the year, the style that they play. Slightly encouraged coming away with a 1-1 draw. Not happy with it, but at least encouraged that even when they scored first, we were able to claw the one back and looked after that by far the most likely to get a second, third, or fourth. So I feel, cautiously optimistic relative to at least a 1-1 scoreline against Nottingham Forest, where you'd think you'd be with that. But yeah, Brentford is a whole different beast. They play differently. They have, Nottingham Forest is better team, but they're much more dangerous attackers on Brentford. It's a different beast. So, but excited for the game.
Absolutely. And when you look at the past fixtures, before we played Nottingham Forest, they had won 5 in a row in the Premier League alone. I think they were on a 7-game spin or something like that. Could be close to that. When you take a look at Brentford, however, and their last couple of fixtures, they conceded 2 against Man City. Now they came back. They lost to Plymouth at home. They scored 5 away against Southampton. And then previous to that, they lost 3-1 to Arsenal, drew 0-0 at Brighton, lost 2-0 to Nottingham Forest, lost 3-1 to Newcastle, lost 2-1 to Chelsea. And then before that, they won 4-2 against Newcastle. Before that, they lost 3-1 against Villa. So since December 15th, which is a month ago, they've 4 losses so far in a draw, 5 losses, 2 draws, and 1 win in the last month. So in the last 8 games, they've had 5 losses, 2 draws, and 1 win. And in that time, I think they've conceded 2, 3, kept a clean sheet against Southampton, 6, 8, 11, and 13. So in the last 8 games, they've conceded 13 goals. But it is a very, very sort of suspect defense. Hassan, I'll throw the same question to you. Following the Nottingham Forest draw, and for all that it was worth, I think a lot of people's problems stem from the fact that it's Nottingham Forest and it's not the flashy name that you would expect to see that level of a game against. Because that second half, we could have very easily finished that game 4-1 up, if not for 2 unbelievable saves by Sells, along with a goal line clearance for a Salah finish too. So it could have very easily gone our own way as well. Now, that's not making excuses, but it's calling a spade a spade. How do you feel following the Forest game? Following the Nottingham Forest performance, especially the second half, and then how we might face against Brentford, who have a much leakier defense?
Yeah, I think it's the story of this season that the first half we start a bit slower, and in second half we improve. And but now a bit worrying thing is that we conceding goals, which was not the thing in the initial games. This is, but I think the comeback was good. But I think the goals we are, essentially it was in the first game. they had one good chance and they scored in this game also. I think the goal was not that there was some defensive. Van Dijk was playing him onside, and the shot was not so venomous. I think Ellison could have done much better, but it uh, it it is a bit worrying that we are conceding goals. And as I think Spencer mentioned that their Brentford attack is really good with Moembo and Visa. They are good strikers, and they can pounce upon any mistake, and they can make really good chances. I think defensively they are not strong as Nottingham Forest, so I hope that we do better in the first half and get we lead for a change at half time and build from there.
Yeah, I think I'm like it's one of them that nobody is sort of making an excuse for now at the moment, that you need to win at the weekend now to sort of get ourselves back on track. We had a good game against Accrington Stanley. We saw a lot of the young guys come out. We now know that Jota is a doubt for tomorrow. Diaz has been unwell, and he probably might train today. Now, there's been no reports of that so far, and Jota hasn't. There's been no reports of Jota training so far, so that would leave the striker position a little bit suspect. Which could see the featuring of Jaden Dans and Darwin Núñez in that position. But Dan, I'll throw the same question that I gave the two guys to you. Following the Nottingham Forest game, very much a game at two halves, where we were very slow in the first half. We kind of played their style of football and slow and methodical. Then we came out in the second half and almost played Jurgen Klopp football, where it was just, fuck it, let's go for it. Hell for leather, let's keep going. Let's go and get a goal. We need to get a goal, obviously, because losing here isn't an option at the moment. For me personally, given the context of everything, and now obviously certain people don't agree with this, but I thought it was a fine draw because, first of all, where they are in the league, that they haven't conceded in at least in about, what was it, about four, they hadn't conceded in the last 4 games until we scored against them. The fact that they hit on the counter early and we made a mistake, and then we had to fight our way back and up from it. And that second half performance showed me that there's obviously great fight in this team still and great energy in this team. But do you think there's much credence to the fact that if this was Arsenal or Man City, or if this was another season and it was Man City, or if this was United and this was years ago when United were way better than us, would this have been seen as a good draw? And is it purely because it's Nottingham Forest that it's seen as a loss rather than a draw, if that makes sense?
Well, I mean, there's a few questions in there, a few things to break down. I'll be honest with you, the way that we left that game, I actually felt even more confident of our own ability by the way that we left that Forest match, because there needs to be some respect on who it was that we were playing against. Yes, it's Nottingham Forest. However, it's Nottingham Forest who are defensively one of the best teams in Europe. Never mind just the Premier League. You need to allow for that. What we were able to do is I actually felt we started really well. You know, the shots weren't great, but we the first 5-6 minutes, we really started quite strongly. And then, of course, we suffered the sucker punch, which was a little bit of a comedy of errors through a few bits and pieces. But it happened. It was their only chance, and of course they scored. And there is arguments across the board. You know, should the keeper do better? Should, you know, defensively should we do better? Yes, there's lots of things we should do better. But we then went for the next 25 minutes, sort of just, I don't know, kind of worrying a little bit too much about what if we can see the second, what if it happens again. I think it was the prophecy of this is what Forest want to do, and we allowed them to do it. I think that's what was most disappointing. However, what I did enjoy though is that when we came out into that second half, just like we've seen in many games, Brighton, Leicester, I mean the list does actually quite literally go on. We were just the better team. We'd sussed them out. We worked out what it is we needed to do. We were getting more control of the game. We were pinning them back. Got to the point where, of course, the corner comes in. We score immediately from the corner, which was fantastic. And as you rightfully said, Steve, it wasn't for some really good saves by Sells, who's definitely the most informed goalkeeper at the moment in the league. He's pulled off some top saves there. We're probably getting at least one more. I think, like you could say, one more is probably being lenient, but it could have been 2, could have been 3 more goals there. We were banging on the door, we were causing them problems, and just, you know, on another day, one of those creeps in, and we walk away from that game really happy with that win. A draw's good. It's not what you want, but it doesn't mean it isn't good. I think it's a good point away from home and a tough team. We don't have to play Nottingham Forest again. A night game, all the hits, their biggest match since the 80s. This is huge. I mean, that crowd was crazy. It was big. It was massive. And what was your last question there, Steve, just so I can answer it? Sorry.
What did you make of the Nottingham Forest fans singing the same song off by heart over and over and over again?
During the game, it was starting to really get on my. I'd have pulled my hair out, to be honest with you. But to be fair, it was a bit of a banger, and I have to respect them for it because it was.
But at the same time, there's a bit of irony in the fact that they're singing a song about being in someone's head 30 times in a game in the space of the first half and in the first 60 minutes, and I'm kind of like, are you in our head? Because
this is it. I like good songs and we like good tunes, but let's be honest with you, we don't want to keep putting it on the jukebox. You can wear it out quite quickly, and I think they were wearing it out. But yeah, no, it was a good one. And just to answer the question, just to point out from the start, Brentford is absolutely the game I'd want Liverpool to be playing right now. That's the truth of it. Brentford, yes, the second best team in the Premier League for home results, blah, 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 blah. You pointed out at the top of the show there, 7 games where they conceded 2 goals or more at home. I mean, the opportunities are there. They can't defend for their life. We saw Arsenal go there. They got hit with a sucker punch, but to be honest with you, they were in second gear and they put 3 past them, and they don't have the attack that we have. They don't have the attacking capabilities we have. Diaz isn't potentially available as a sore throat, blah, blah, blah. We know there was an illness going around. Jota probably isn't going to play. There's a slight issue with him. He won't play, but that means it's going to be Cody Gakpo, Mo Salah and Darwin Núñez, along with Szoboszlai, McAllister, all these superstars. I'm supremely confident this is a game where Liverpool will grab a couple, if not more.
Yeah, Drew here mentioning, is this a case where we look back at it as a good draw in hindsight, but only gets blown up now because the title race is tight? Drew, Liverpool fans, overreacting? Never. I have never once seen a Liverpool fan overreact in my life. I have never once seen a Liverpool fan get overly emotional in my life. But yes, Drew, to answer your question, I do think it's going to be blown up out of proportion. Hindsight is a great thing, and when you look at everything within context, I do believe it was a good draw if you can have one of those. And considering that throughout 38 games this season so far, we've lost 2 and drawn 4. So we've won, what is it? We've won 32 games of 38 this season. I mean,
slots out, innit?
Yeah. If anybody was expecting us to go and win 60 games this season, you're fucking dreaming. That's just the way that I look at it. But yes, tomorrow is a must win as Brentford are horrific defensively. Just looking as well, even at the chances that they concede. I want to go and take a look. Oh, excuse me. I want to go take a look at Brentford just for the statistics of it alone. And in the Premier League so far, I need to look at it by teams. So, Brentford, in regards to attack, for their expected goals, they're ranked 8. This is just in the Premier League. For their expected goals, they're ranked 8 with 34.8. Their actual goals scored, where are we now? Goals scored. Oh, well, it doesn't fucking show me that, but I'm sure. Or where are they in the table? If I look at the table, I see their actual goals scored. They've scored 40, so they're overperforming that immediately straight away. And then when we take a look at their goals, expected goals conceded, they are 7th with 34.7, and they have currently conceded 37. So they're slightly underperforming that at the moment, but still, it doesn't matter realistically because they're conceding those chances. They concede on average, I think it's so far this season, they concede 1.8 goals per game across the entire season, home and away. They're
conceding 2 goals a game
for the entire season, yeah.
On average.
On average, 1.8 goals per game in the Premier League on average.
That's absolutely terrible.
Arsenal are top with 0.9, but us and Forest are tied in second with 1 goal per game per match conceded. Newcastle then just are on par with us as well with 1 conceded. Bournemouth are there with 1.2, Chelsea with 1.2, Everton with 1.3, and it goes on and on and on. But yeah, look, I really don't think this is going to be one of those games. We just put a couple past them and that'll be it finished. But Dan, I'm going to pass it over to you for a second because I got to run really quickly, and I'm just going to ask you the question of predicted lineups and who you would start and why. Take it away and give me give everybody and the fans their predicted lineups, and I should be back in just about 2 seconds. All right?
Don't panic, mate. I'll sort it. Yeah, and obviously for anyone who's in the chat right now, put your predicted lineups if you agree or disagree with what I'm going to say. I think, the back line is where there's a few question marks, isn't there? I think we're going to be starting Alisson. I don't think there's quite the call just yet to be bringing CK back in. Slot has already said he's my first choice goalkeeper, and he's a man of his word so far this season. When he said something happens, it generally does happen. So I think Alisson's going to start, no issues at all. We're going to be starting Trent. We're going to be starting Ibu. We're going to be starting Van Dijk. The question is going to be at left back. And I don't think you're going to have too many people wanting to fight me over, is it time for Tsimikas to maybe have a game? I think Robbo did have a really tough game, didn't he, against Forest? And the point when he fell over with the ball went over his head, I went, that's me at Power League on a Thursday night. That's what I do. And yeah, it's probably maybe time just to maybe give him that match out. Lille's midweek. There's another opportunity there for him maybe to have a game, try and build up his confidence. Going into midfield, for me, it's if the three of them are fit, it's McAllister, Szoboszlai and Gravenberch. I think it offers all of the balance. It offers all of the things that you would want. You got the power and the running power of Dominic Szoboszlai. He's had some rest, having had an illness. McAllister, just for the control of him and the fact that he is absolutely brilliant. And Gravenberch, it just says for itself, doesn't it? Ultimately, he is our 6 and he'll be the player who will play that game for me. And up front, Mo Salah, of course, because there's only one person who can play right wing. It's Mo Salah forever. Chiesa, I'm sorry, mate. I don't know what we promised you, but it ain't happening. You might get a game in the FA Cup. Up front, Jota, if there's a slight problem with him, you just don't risk him, do you? At the end of the day, the guy's made of Jacob's crackers. So you just don't want to risk that lad. So for me, I'm fed up with the Luis Diaz idea as a false 9. I don't quite think it would be the right idea. Bring Núñez in last season. We all remember the finish. We all remember the goal. He'll have that memory in his mind. He'll be rested, having got himself suspended for a game, which he also scored a famous goal in last season. And of course, going on the left-hand side, I think we've got to start with Gakpo because I think he had a bit of an off game against Forest, to be honest. But I'm looking at that situation and going, he's going to be someone who he creates goals, he creates assists, he's powerful, and he's probably your man on that left hand side. So Diaz to drop out, maybe this sort of sore throat situation just sort of gives Slots the excuse to maybe just, you can sit out for this one. I think that team would have enough to do the job, to be honest. Spencer, I'll come over to yourself, mate. Anything you disagree with? Am I talking complete nonsense, or should I be on the analyst team?
No, you're good. Real quick, I had a work email come through that I had to check. Who did you say you'd want at left back?
I would go with Tsimikas for me. I think Robbo, it's. I said before the season started, and some people came for me, and I said I think time is nigh. I think it's time to put old Andy out into the pastures new because it's done out there. He's finished for me.
I agree. Yeah, okay. That would have been the biggest one, I think. I think that's maybe the most contentious, or maybe it's not. Maybe everyone just unanimously agrees that it's time for Tsimikas. Watching Robertson, to me, it's like there's a couple stages of athletic decline, and he's in the most painful one right now where he hasn't – I don't think he's fully clocked that he's lost a step yet, so he still goes in for tackles and takes angles that he would have been able to make perfectly fine at 28 years old, whereas – someone like Casemiro, for example, he's fully aware that he has lost it. He doesn't take the same angles that he used to. Somebody starts running at him. He goes, all right, cool. I'm going back to the goal. I'm going to cut you off there. Robertson hasn't gotten it yet. And I think he's late to stuff. It's a difficult thing to watch. And until he adapts that part of his game, which I don't know if he ever will, just with the mentality that he has, he's a bit of a liability. I think definitely Tsimikas should get the start here.
Spencer, I think you're right. Just to talk your point there, I think you made a really good point about maybe where Robertson is. It's that difficult phase, I suppose, a little bit like anything else in your life that you might do, and your brain and it's trying to tell your body to do something, and you haven't quite got to that point where physically you can't do it yet. You don't realize that you aren't quite physically fast enough anymore. You're not physically sort of capable of doing those things. And what the greatest players do are the ones who very quickly realize that they can't do certain things and adjust. I think Mo Salah has done this already. We know with the way he plays his game, he knows he doesn't have the same blistering pace that he used to have, but we're now seeing a different one, and it almost happens without us noticing. Where with Robertson, it's happening and we can all see it, and it isn't just, oh, it's happened once. The list is very long now of mistakes that he's made just by not being quick enough, not making the right anticipation, which in the past he would have made no issues at all. But yeah, carry on. What were you going to say extra on there, mate?
No, you're good. It's the only other one that I would be like questionable on. If Diaz is, I had not read that he had an illness, but I don't stay plugged into the very second of all of our news. If he is sick, then yeah, then it should be Diaz that we run out there. But I still think he's our best center forward, at least just on the whole, form aside, class and best player for the position. I think he is our best center forward right now. Obviously, that because I think Gakpo is our best left winger and Salah, no questions asked on the right. That leaving that, I would rather him than Darwin, but perhaps there is an element of he had that chip. That was one of the coolest goals that in recent memory that probably isn't talked about enough last year. Maybe that might be in his head. That's footballers are. It's you want to look at the numbers and you want to like talk about all these things, but it really is a psychological game. And having that, knowing that he did that last time out in the stadium last time, for a player like him, I think specifically that is the kind of psychological boost that maybe he needs to get unstuck. So if he is the center forward, if he is our striker, I think I'm good with it. But I think I don't really. You asked for disagreements. I don't really have any. Just a couple players that I wanted to touch on there.
That's what we like here, the LFC transfer room. It's not a democracy. It is a dictatorship. You will follow the company line. Hassan, are you following the company line and what's being said, or are you going to rebel and we'll have to lock you up in internment?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. One thing I want, last game at Nottingham, when it comes to substitute in the game, we were stuck. I think instead of Jones, I think Elliot should have come on, and because I think Elliot can offer more in that sort of games. When there's a low block, Jones is a player who can start a game when we are 0-0. But I think when we want a winning goal, I think he should have come on. I think it should be tried, but it seems like Slot does not rate Elliot enough. Maybe it's a physicality thing or something like that. But I think it should. And for as Spencer said, I think Nunes should be given the chance instead of Diaz, who has not trained because of sore throat last night. I don't know he trained today or not, because with Diaz, when he was playing just as a center forward and the game is open, he can be really useful. He can run with the but with teams who are in low block, he has a tendency to come back too much. That leaves it was so compact, and Diaz coming backwards. I think there was the chances were lessened because there was not a focal point for us. So I think with these two not fully fit, I think it should be Nunes who should be given a chance, because there will be so many games. He should have some confidence boost. because we will need him with Jota's injury record. I think with the things going with Hughes, I think he'll send Dance on loan, so we'll have less players, and availability is a really nice thing to have, and Darwin will be there if Jota is not there.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we pass back to Steve now, he's returned from his important meeting.
I was chatting to Richard Hughes.
Yeah, of course. We only speak directly to the main men here. Yes, I am a massive Liverpool nerd, as you'll find out. So just to answer Derek's question, he said Jota injured again. Please don't panic too much, mate. He said he felt a little bit of something, which is perhaps something to do with the fact that Team of the Year packs came out on FIFA. I don't know. It's possible. You don't know. Coincidences. I don't believe in them. But here we are. So yeah, he seems like he could be okay. We're Suidav's Nunes starting over. Now I'll give Chiesa a chance. I think there's more chance of me starting against Brentford than Chiesa, to be honest. It's just not something he's ready to do, willing to do. I think it's more along the line of standards. I think Slot sets his stall out very, very high. And it would just appear to be that he said that, these players, being good isn't good enough. You're going to have to be better than the players we already have in the first team, to get that chance and to get that ability. And I think Elliott has been unfortunate. He started pre-season and looked brilliant. He looked really good in that 10 role. And I think a lot of us all said that we think, he's going to play lots of games. And then, of course, he broke his metatarsal. And since then, he's just not been able to get into the team. And Derek did actually just carry on to what he says there, which is why, when he said, well, we're not really kind of making many changes. And we actually had a chat recently in the group chat talking about, the fact that we don't rotate, or haven't rotated very much as of yet, which is something that Slot didn't rotate very much at Feyenoord at all. So this is only following what he kind of does anyway. Derek, your points there saying, is it a pace and physicality of Elliott? But for me, he's such an intelligent player he is. He can find the gaps to exploit, to negate any flaws he has. Yes, you're right. And it's hard to kind of put an exact finger on as to what it is. Is it because we have McAllister in the team, who is obviously not the biggest of lads, and does he just want someone like Szoboszlai who's going to be able to cover such, like a fast wave of the pitch so quickly? And Elliott he's just not in his game. It's just not something he can do, and it's a tough balance. And I kind of think that the writing's sort of on the wall. And Stephen, you said something in the chat, didn't you, about what you'd heard from Feyenoord fans when it comes to Slot and his sort of ruthlessness. If you want to let everyone sort of what your thoughts potentially what that could mean for a few players' futures, maybe in the summer.
Oh yeah, listening to an awful lot of people speak about him that were Feyenoord fans, and we have our own sort of inside man, shall we call it, in Willem that joins us on streams every so often. Willem is obviously, I'm not sure of the division, but he's Spanish and he's Dutch as well at the same time. Spent most of his life in Spain, I believe, but he would follow an awful lot of the Dutch football at home. And the second that Slot was signed, he was over the moon more than the rest of us, because none of us had a Scoobies. And Dan will go on the record of saying that he was completely against the signing at the.
I take the fifth.
Dan was completely against the signing at the start, and I believe his words were, "We're signing a manager from the Dutch league," and they were those worries were very quickly silenced by probably about mid-September. So
he doesn't believe anything, Stephen. You're lying. You've got them printed out above the finger, and it'll be there's the message of what he said, and they'll be strolled out when we win this league.
Oh, absolutely! I cannot wait. And do you know what?
Oh, I know.
Just for the people saying FSG out, I hope we sign nobody and win the league. Because I'm going to go through every comment section and start laughing at people. Because this team is good enough to win the league as it is. Now, could reinforcements help? Absolutely. However, as Dan correctly mentioned, you need to sign a player that's either willing to come in and sit while also moving from a starter position to a sitting position, or you sign somebody that's better than what we currently have. And realistically, probably the only position that you could properly upgrade at a reasonable price right now will be left back. But the problem is I'll give you two examples of two left backs that we've been linked to very heavily, which is Rayan Ait Nouri and then you also have Kirkes as well from Bournemouth. Now,
Yeah.
the problem is that while Liverpool might be willing to buy these players, Bournemouth and Wolves don't have to roll over because it's Richard Hughes on the phone or Liverpool on the phone. They're both competing as well. And the problem with that is Wolves are fighting for survival and Bournemouth are fighting hilariously for a European spot. They're in the running for one of the European spots this season, which could go all the way down to 7th if the Premier League gets the 5th Champions League spot. And they very well could, considering how well a lot of the English teams are doing in Europe at the moment. But my point is Bournemouth are, even if you threw €80 million or £80 million for Kirkes, let's just say we had the money and we threw it at Kirkes.
Please don't.
Bournemouth still probably won't sell because the prospect of them getting European football is worth so much more than that 80 million. But then losing Kirkes for the last 6 months, and missing him. Now they've gotten their replacement in Soler, but he needs to embed into the squad. Unless Areola is going to come out what's his name for Bournemouth? Somebody correct me on it. It's not Areola, is it?
Andoni Areola.
Yeah. So I might just be pronouncing it wrong.
Right. Yeah. That's why I didn't understand what you were saying. I was like, yeah. Right.
No, that's fine. But him, like, unless he pulls it out the bag with another left back and immediately, like, Bournemouth's chances of making the Champions League or making a European competition next season are much better with Kirkes there for the next 6 months than without. So that potential money, it's a win-win for Bournemouth because either way, Kirkes may go in the summer. But the odds of them getting European football will increase with him being there for the next 6 months, and they also have the replacement blooded in by that point. They've played a blinder here. We should have got their sporting director. Anyways, then when it comes to the likes of Wolves are currently fighting for survival. If they lose Ait-Nouri, who's one of their best creators, so to speak, in their attacking output, or whatever you say about his defense, he's one of their best creators. You immediately lose all your teeth down the left-hand side of that pitch. And now all of a sudden, it's like them waving the white flag and saying, we're fine with getting relegated. Because then now all of a sudden, they'll end up losing the likes of João Gomez, who's their CDM. They'll lose Mateus Cunha, who's the big talisman striker for them up front. And then they're left in limbo in going up and down like Leeds have for so many years after they went up the shit after spending so much money as well. So there's 5, 6, 10-year plans that these clubs have pinned out for themselves, which is the issue. So what a lot of people need to understand is that just because Liverpool comes knocking at the door doesn't mean that the other club is going to sell, nor should they roll over for us because they need to protect their own assets and their own rights. Similarly, how we're not rolling over with Real Madrid wanting Trent Alexander-Arnold. The point that I was making about Arne Slot, however, is that Feyenoord fans were saying, and Willem was saying as well, that he's ruthless. He will remove fan favorites, and he doesn't care. He doesn't care who it pisses off. If he thought selling Salah in 12 months' time got the team better, he'd drive him to the airport. Is essentially the ruthlessness that I've heard about. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think that's perfect for us because there's some players, and as well, I think with a manager refresh, there's been players that may have gotten comfortable over time with Arne Slot. I'm looking at Trent, or with Jurgen Klopp, should I say, may have gotten comfortable over time with Jurgen Klopp, knowing that they were undroppable. Slot has shown that that's not the case, and he has dropped Trent after a stinker of a performance, and rightly so, and then didn't start him in the next Premier League game, I'm nearly sure. After that United game, or did we play a Premier League game after the United game, or did we play a cup game?
Next game was a cup game. It
was against Spurs.
Yeah,
and Trent didn't play for that game. And then we played Accrington and he started him against Accrington. So it's a statement, but it's not a statement, that kind of a thing. It's just interesting to go through. But before we move on to our score predictions for the game, before we finish up, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out as well. We'll be live again tomorrow after the game, hopefully, and we will also be live from 7:30 p.m. in the evening too. But I'm going to give my predicted lineup because I didn't get a chance to do it because I was off chatting to Richard Hughes about the signings we're going to make. But I would go Alisson in goal, Trent right back, Ibu and Verge centre backs. I'd go Simicast left back, Grav and McAllister midfield, double pivot. I'd go Szoboszlai centre attacking midfielder, and then I think the front line should be Gakpo, Nunes, and Salah. Now, whether that is in line with the rest of the lads and what they've said, purely the reason I want Nunes up there and not Diaz is I've seen enough of the Diaz at centre forward. I think Nunes being there, he plays better with Salah. Salah plays better when he's there. He's constantly making runs. He's penetrating the back line. Diaz just doesn't have the size and physicality for that. And I think against a team like Brentford, where getting the ball into the box will cause them problems and getting more chances will cause them problems, who better than Darwin Núñez to be running in behind and making those fullbacks and centre backs second guess having to check the channel and turn their shoulder even for a split second. That will unlock the game an awful lot. Even if he doesn't score, the amount of off-ball stuff he does that a lot of people don't see and don't show up in a stat sheet. Similarly to Bobby Firmino. Now, before anybody jumps down my throat, I'm not comparing the two. I'm saying the two of them did things in similar ways that helped the team win that doesn't necessarily show up on a stats sheet. Stuff that you can't quantify, such as pulling a defender away to create space, cutting in behind to make a defender take that extra step back, stuff that you won't see on a stat sheet, but when clubs or coaches are reviewing the film, they will see it. But that'd be my starting 11, more or less. I'd like to see Chiesa come on. I see obviously here with Abdi mentioned here, Slot needs to play Chiesa too. I think he's going to be one of those that will start playing in a lot of the FA Cup games, and he might start playing now at the end of games because he's kind of started to build minutes and he's started to show up. And as you've seen against, look, I know Slot tempered it by saying it was Accrington, but if you go back and look at the game against Southampton where he played in that second half, if not for a goal line clearance and Harvey Elliott being 6 inches too late, Chiesa would have had a goal and assist in that game and we would have won 5-2, which is absolutely bonkers in itself. But we're going to move on to score predictions, and make sure you get your score predictions into the chat as well. So I'm going to put it in here now. What is going to be the score? So I'm going to throw it in here into the and forgive the grammar. It should have been a question mark and not an exclamation point. But what's going to be the score tomorrow? Get your thoughts and predictions into the group chat. First prize, closest wins a cookie. But Spencer, I'm going to go with you first. What do you think the scoreline is going to be, and who do you think scores?
I think 3-1. I haven't decided who's going to score one of the goals, but I think Cody Gakpo scores twice. Maybe he assists the third. I really think it's a good matchup against Roslav, the right back. I want to say he is dead last in terms of like dribblers tackled, like the percentage win rate of defenders in the Premier League with like a minimum threshold of 25 or 30 attempts. He's at like 36%, and Gakpo is, I think he's 22 for 36. Over 60% is like a 95th percentile number. I think he's just going to have his way with him tomorrow. I think he gets 2. We'll go. I'll be optimistic. I think he assists Núñez for the third. 3-1.
Yeah. Good. Hassan, what's your predictions?
I'm going for 2-1. I think we'll score first with Salah. They'll get one back, and we'll get the second goal in the second half. I'm going with Núñez.
Cool. And Dan, how do you feel it going?
3-0. I honestly think we'll get our clean sheet here now. Genuinely feel like this will be one of those games where it's sort of, back to business, opportunity to send a statement before Arsenal play this evening, the evening later on against Villa. I'm going to go with, do you know what? I actually like that. I think Gakpo gets the first one. Spencer, you've rocked my world with your data analysis there. I'm all about it. So I'm going for all that. And Visa, she's going to be not sleeping very well tonight hearing that news.
Yeah. I'm going to say 2-0. I think Salah grabs a brace, and I think Gakpo assists and Núñez assists, purely because... And I also like, and the reason I say assists is because I think Brentford are going to be aware of that fact that Obviously, Gakpo is very, very, very good at getting the ball inside and cutting inside or the overlap or whatever. But I think Brentford will probably overcommit to that side, which will help centrally and the right wing. So obviously Sepp Vandenberg is going to be the right-sided centre back there, so he'll shift over to try and help against Gakpo, which then opens up massive amounts of space through the middle. So I could see even maybe Szoboszlai getting a goal. I could see one of the midfielders getting a goal from a cut in. I could see Salah getting a goal from the back post with a quick dink over the top from Gakpo. I think Gakpo will be the focal point in how we create, but I don't think he'll score purely because he'll probably end up being doubled up. And conversely, if it ends up being Salah that gets being doubled up, I can see Gakpo having an absolute field day. It all really depends on sort of pick your poison kind of a thing. Like, are they going to commit to Gakpo on their right side, our left side, where they're weak, or are they going to try and play and just do a one-on-one and go man-to-man and let them try and basically tempt us to try and beat them? Or are they going to overcommit to the most threatening side, which would be Salah's side, which then opens up Gakpo in the middle then as well on top of it. But Derek here mentioning Salah hat-trick. If he scores a hat-trick, Derek, I'm going to be jumping on the post-game stream tomorrow because he's my captain in FPL. I'm going to be jumping on the post-game stream tomorrow screaming your name. But we are going to leave it there for today, guys. We're going to finish up a little bit early just because I am not feeling the best. I have a bit of man flu at the moment. But thank you so much for everybody joining us. I want to thank Spencer, Hassan, and Dan for joining me today. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos as well if you never miss out. We actually won't be having a post-game stream tomorrow at the time of 5 o'clock, which it would normally be. It's going to be pushed out to 7:30 in the evening with our normal stream. Richie will be on then. We'll have Matty on as well, and we might have Patricio on as well for that. There should be some spaces on there if one of the lads wants to jump on as well. It might be me coming in and screaming Derek's name after Salah bags a hat-trick. But I hope everybody has a wonderful Friday evening or the rest of their Friday day, wherever they may find themselves. And let's hope we are on stream tomorrow after a Liverpool victory, where we see ourselves go 7 points clear and Aston Villa does the business against Arsenal tomorrow as well, which would be a very good game to watch. Now, they play after us, however, but it will still be, a great game to watch. Plus, us getting the 3 points at Brentford really puts the pressure on them too, that they need a result to kind of keep up the race. But I don't see Arsenal doing that for the prolonged end of the season. Arsenal need to win. If we win 16 games out of our last 18, it doesn't matter what any other team does. Liverpool win the Premier League. And do you want to know when that 16th game is if we win 16 in a row? That 16th game is against Arsenal at home. Could you imagine? However, as it stands at the moment, if Arsenal go band for band with us, we win the Premier League at home against Arsenal in the third final game. And then the last two are just rubber matches. Throw the kids out. Fuck it. It's done. Bear in mind as well, by the way, Liverpool can still hit 101 points. Not all doom and gloom. Not all doom and gloom. So, everybody join in tomorrow when we have our stream after the game and make your thoughts known. Thank you so much for joining us on this Friday evening, and we will see you guys again tomorrow.